Alright, I'm going to build a new gun for the front of the U-boat. Two reasons for that. One is, I had it in the water one day at periscope depth and some whopping big boat went over the top and took half of it off. The second reason is that the original gun that I built for this boat was actually designed to shoot water, which meant that it was a degree of difficulty which was quite hard. So what I've now done is just built an ordinary gun, and it took me about a day to do it, and it looks pretty good, and I thought I'd show you how basically I did that. I've got a series on my webpage called Eye Catchers, and what I mean when I talk about eye catchers is how to focus on things that really matter in what you build, so that your eyes are taken by the bits that really matter, and you tend not to see some of the other bits or the details that aren't there. So let me tell you a little bit about how I did that. But first of all, you'll notice in the picture of the gun that it's very complex, and I'm not actually going to try and recreate all of that. What I'm going to try and do is recreate an impression of complexity, and I'm going to put enough in it to make it really, really nice looking. So this is how I did that. First of all, you'll notice that at the base of the gun like this, there is a tube that comes out which is really quite large. It's actually like that in shape. And then out of that comes another fairly thick rod, and then attached to that is another rod, and there's a connection there, and then at the top of that there is this rest that the crew member can sit in. Now also there is another one coming out this way and recreating that. So you've got these four rests, and I think these are really good to concentrate on. So the question is, how do you make something as fine as that? Well, what I did was this. I went down to the hobby store and bought a couple of pieces of stock rod, and the other's a piece of tube. Now if I measure this in imperial, this tube is in fact 62 thousandths of an inch on the outside, and by playing around I've now got this other piece of brass which is 32, and it's a beautiful sliding fit inside this other piece of tube. Now I had to buy that. There was no way around that. You just don't find this naturally unless you're cleverer than me. If you can find something like that, good on you. So what I did was use a technique I've used on many occasions before. I took the tube to begin with and put a piece of it there, and then just ground a seat in it and put another piece there, and silver soldered those on, cut that in half. So I had my starting point for the base of those constructions. The next thing that I did was to take my bench top and drill a hole with a drill which will fit the rod perfectly, and put the piece of rod in here, drilled another hole just here, and then basically just bent it across, and then just touched that with silver solder. Now what that gave me, of course, was this nice angle that I wanted, which meant that at a later point in time all I had to do was bend that, and I've got then part of my structure that I'm looking for. It's not exactly right, but it will do. So the next thing that I did then was to keep that long base there. I've got here the piece that's bent out, and then put some nice, in this case, brass in there, and put a half-rounded piece of solid onto it and silver soldered that on there, and then just cut them all back. And I did that together. It really didn't take very long to do that, and before long I had four matching rests, and I had the cross piece at the bottom that I could solder them into. That's how I did all of that. The gun barrel was pretty easy. That was just turned down in a lathe, and the rest of it really fell into place. But you see, the other thing that I did was I had an old kit of a tank, and basically the little wheels made perfect valves. So the next thing to do was to cut those off and grind them off, and then use the same thickness of rod just to mount them onto the gun. Now that meant that I had to use the Dremel and a very fine drill, and I had it in my hand and did it very carefully. I didn't make a video of that, so you can't see that, but basically that worked out nicely. Now from a distance, this looks fantastic, and that's how you see this obviously on an operating submarine, but even close up it looks pretty good. Then of course, a little bit of grime, a little bit of dirt, tiny bit of rust. It's good.